So Adam Scott, it's one of the prettiest swings in golf. A lot of people could just watch this on repeat. I'm one of those people. It's very similar to the Tiger Woods famous 2000 swing. A lot of people were sort of making comparisons between Adam and Tiger when he first came out on tour, not only because his swing looked remarkably similar to Tiger, but also because they had their same coach in Butch Harmon. Now, Adam's worked with a few different coaches since then. He's worked with Butch Harmon, obviously, and then he moved on to his brother-in-law, Brad Malone, worked with George Gankas for a brief period, and then he went back to his brother-in-law, Brad Malone, recently, and I think he's still working with him in 2020. So the first thing you'll notice with Adam, he works meticulously on his fundamentals. His grip, his stance, his posture. Now, this is something that a lot of people can learn from. Adam's got one of the best swings in the world, and a lot of people will think, oh, he's always working on technique, but that's not the case. He's often working on the fundamentals. If you get the fundamentals right, get your posture right, you can move around the body in the way it was designed to do. So the first thing we'll notice with Adam is he's actually rounded his spine off a little bit more, and what I mean by that, he's got a little bit of a curve there. Now, what we used to see with Adam was he was very bolt upright. He's very much more in this position with his chin more up. So it would almost be, as opposed to this curve that I just drew on there, it'd almost be that way. So that just didn't allow him to move the vertebrae in the back the way we'd like to. So he sort of rounded that off just to give him a more neutral posture. And I think around 2010, 2011, he changed that posture, and not long after he won the Masters, got to world number one. So I think that was one of the biggest things that Adam's changed that's really elevated him to one of the best players in the world. Now, from face on, one thing that I think people should notice is his feet are flared out slightly. I've heard a lot of people say this, the right foot should be sort of at 90 degrees perpendicular to the target. But that's not the case, because what happens is if this foot or ankle is at 90 degrees, it moves this femur bone inwards this way. So what that causes is that femur, how it sits in the hip socket, it won't rotate properly if you square that foot up. I know a lot of coaches will talk saying resisting the hips, but it'll just really inhibit your ability to rotate around this hip, and this is something that Adam does beautifully. You'll notice that both feet are flared out around 15 degrees, which will give him really optimal rotation and range of motion around that hip to do what he does in the swing. So let's take all these lines off. Let's add some more on. So we'll put one on his butt, one on his head, and then we'll put one on his right hip, one on his left hip, one on his head again. So from down the line, you'll notice this line on his rear. This is something that we see in the majority of really high level players. Their butt doesn't go this way. It doesn't go closer to the ball. It always, more than likely, goes that way. So we don't see this movement in the golf swing, we see that movement. And you'll see that whenever you get guys on 3D, they'll all move that backside away from the ball. I'll just redraw these lines on there, and we can start Adam off in his backswing. So Adam's backswing, he does a beautiful job of taking the club away. Nice one-piece takeaway. Here you'll see that this humerus bone is in front of the seam line of his shirt. This is what we see with a lot of good players, and it's the right way to move the scapula, the shoulder blade around the rib cage. When you start getting this humerus joint behind the rib cage or too much in front, it'll then change the way that rib cage moves. And what we want to do is we want to keep those shoulders in a really nice position to keep the club on plane and allow you to keep pressure down the line and hit nice golf shots without using much hand manipulation. So you'll notice Adam's club is nicely square to that back line, and then the shaft of the club is outside the hands. This really lets him set the club well, and he never really gets that club behind him, which a lot of players really don't like if they get the club behind them. So from the face on view, we'll see again nice wide takeaway. I'll just bring that back a couple of frames, and again what we was talking about, you'll see a little bit of flex in that right arm. That just enables again that right scapula to work correctly around the rib cage. You'll start noticing those wrists start to set around halfway back. So let me just pause it and take it a couple of frames back. So we'll see here that Adams set the club really nicely. He's got those wrists set, a nice angle there, and then from down the line we take it back to a similar position around halfway back. You'll notice his wrists are nice and set. That club is pretty much on the ball line. We'll see a lot of amateurs get the club around here or up here. So he's just in a fantastic position there. He's set, those wrists, those scapulas are working beautifully, which will give his right arm a really nice position at the top. So let me just clear some of those lines off. So what you'll also notice with Adam is not really moved too much laterally in his backswing. And we'll get to the top of his swing. So his hands are really nice and high. See a lot of good players sort of over that shoelaces. His right arm is in a beautiful position. As we were talking about before, he's just loaded that scapula beautifully. And why I'm talking so much about that scapular position is because if that scap starts wandering around, that shoulder blade should I say, then it can create all sorts of issues. The club can get off plane, whereas if it's in that stable position, it just creates a lot of stability around the shoulder joint, and then you can rotate and just hit the ball clean and crisp. And undoubtedly Adam's one of the best ball strikers on tour, so this is something that's really fundamental to Adam's swing, and something why it looks so pretty much. So the one thing that you will know is how much Adams moved off the ball. This is something he did work on with George Gankas, and I think George got it spot on with how far out his armpits sit over the ball. Now George Gankas likes his students to get his armpits more over the laces, so you can see there's a good bit of distance there. So obviously, in order to just take these lines off, in order to maintain that posture and keep Adam's butt back like he does so well, he's got to move that head back. So there's quite a lot of movement backwards in the swing that you see with Adam, but that's something he's always done. It's something that he doesn't particularly like, but he's done pretty well doing that move. So I wouldn't be someone to change it per se. So as we start the downswing, what we'll notice with Adam, let me just clear this line off, is he does a beautiful job of externally rotating that right arm, and then getting the club really nice and shallow. Now what we'll see, I'll just draw a line on here. So I'll just draw a circle from where his hands start, then we'll draw another circle halfway down. Then we'll join these up. So this line represents the hand path. And if we look around the center of mass of the club, which is just around here, you'll see that center of mass is dropping way behind this hand path. So you can see this distance here, that's how far that center of mass of the club head is dropping behind the hand path. I know this sounds very technical, but all that's doing is that's allowing him to create speed. It's creating a lagging effect. So if you imagine a jet ski or a like a waterboarder behind a jet ski, if they're going in a straight line, they'll go the same pace as the jet ski or the speedboat. Now the moment that speedboat or jet ski turns a corner, that wakeboarder or jet skier behind will be flung out at quite a high pace. And it's the same thing with a golf swing. So we want to see that center of mass, this yellow line, traveling behind that hand path, if we want to create a lot of speed, it'll also allow you to rotate really nicely through the ball. So this is something that Adam does beautifully. And from down the line, something that's probably not promoted as it would have been in the 80s is Adam will get quite a bit of a slide going with his hips. So as you can see, he's got moved quite a good few inches from the top of his backswing, but as you can see, maintains that lag in the club beautifully. That right arm is below his right elbow, is below his left, which enables him to shallow the club. His hips are opening up nicely. What we'll see here again, that club face is pretty much parallel to his backline. If I just bring it down here, you can see how that right arm's really getting tucked in to the right side of the body. Again, maintaining his wrist angle, and then that knee is going towards the other knee. He's getting a lot of pressure towards that front foot, and we'll see it impact. Just rewind it a couple of frames, get rid of these lines. We'll see how much shaft lean Adam has at impact. I mean, that's just a beautiful position. You notice that Adam does, like I say, get quite a lot of shaft lean. He is known to be playing some older school irons. I think they're from 2004, which the irons lofts are a lot weaker. His 6 iron will be the loft of some guys 7 and 8 irons. But that's because Adam does a fantastic job of de-lofting that club head, which really allow him to create pressure down the line. And one more thing that we will just say is, as I talked about before, how much Adam backs up. So you can see there he's backed up with his head a good couple of inches. But obviously the camera is moving, so we can't be totally accurate. But he does back up a little bit there. So, and then if we, I mean, I'll be honest with you, the follow through for golf swings, it's already done. The backswing and downswing is going to dictate how you follow through, but Adam just does a fantastic job here. It's one of the most beautiful follow throughs. You see that club's releasing nicely. What Adam works on a lot is keeping that head rotating. Now, when you enable the head to rotate, you will open up this chest. You can see that chest is, and the hips are really nice and open. Those shoelaces are pointing towards the target. If that head's staying down, you're not going to be able to rotate your thoracic spine, your hips through. And that's something that's a grave misconception in the game of golf. Keep your head down. Adam will openly admit that he looks at guys like David Duval or Annika Sorenstam and that head movement, and that's something that was encouraged with Butch Harmon, and that just enables him to really open that chest up. Now if we go all the way through to the follow through, you'll see that club's exiting beautifully, gets a nice release, nice and balanced. You don't see Adam jumping around on that left foot like a lot of the newer kids. But I think a lot of that is due to how flexible Adam is. I don't think a lot of the younger guys who hit it as far where you see this left foot jumping off the ground have the flexibility that Adam does, because to get into that position where he's that rotated and not either bringing that foot up or bringing that foot on the outer edge, he just must have tremendous internal hip rotation to do that. Very planted. I mean, that is not a position that most guys could get in, keeping that foot that down. You see Justin Rose is somebody whose foot comes way off the ground here because he's just not got the mobility through the hip and through the ankle to get in that position, and especially how he wraps the club round his back. And a lot of guys couldn't keep the foot that stable through the swing, and that's just due to Adam Scott being so flexible. It's not something that many people could do, so it's not something that you try. Now Adam, again, I mean that finish position is just a thing of beauty, something that you see on TV all the time, and it's just beautifully poised, beautifully balanced. But that is a fundamental of everything that he's done before the swing. You'll see if he gets off, doesn't sometimes hold the finish for as long, or it won't look as beautiful as that. But overall, just a fantastic swing, and it's a real thing of beauty.